Do I still have it or am I a bit rusty? I don't usually look this nice for a video, but I just came back from the hairdresser. Hi friends, welcome back to A Small Sanctuary with Rabbi Esther. And as you see, I am back. It's been a while, more about that later. I've had a little glow up here in more than one department. This hair is looking fresh, straight from the hairdresser. I promise you it will not look this nice in future videos. Let me tell you what I hope to achieve with today's video, which is to talk a little bit about why I was gone, why I stepped away from the channel, what's been going on in my life meanwhile, and why I'm back and what I hope to bring back to the channel. Why was I gone? The story kind of starts with the Tu B'Shvat content that I started making a long time ago, almost 18 months ago now, and I hit a little roadblock. So I wanted to make a 5-part series about lifestyle changes and implementing better habits, and I made one on prayer, and then I wanted to make one on our relationship with food. And I've done food related content before on this channel, but I realized as I was digging into this whether I was really the best placed person to talk about this. And the more I scripted out my script, the more I realized that it might be irresponsible for me to talk about this while I was in the middle of my own journey. So what was my own journey? About 18 months ago, I decided to go on a health journey. I've always had a good relationship with food and my body, and when I still lived overseas, I was quite naturally active. Then COVID happened. So like many people, I gained a little extra fluff during COVID and didn't think too much of it. It was kind of a universal experience all across the Western world as we were in lockdown and struggling through this very stressful period of our lives. But then October 7th and the Gaza war happened, and it was stress upon stress upon stress. And I got COVID in 2022 and 2024. And when I got COVID in 2022, I actually got long COVID and I needed to recover for about 3 months. After my recovery, I realized that my strength had really sapped. I figured, well, I'm approaching middle age here. I better do something about it. So I went on a health and fitness journey. I overhauled some of my habits, tweaked some other habits, started strength training and doing some mild, not super intensive cardio, and lost 30 pounds and built a ton of strength. So that has been really, really positive in my life. I kind of ummed and ahed and went back and forth whether this was something I wanted to document or talk about on the channel. I'm not a health and fitness channel, I'm a rabbi, but Shmirat Guf, guarding your body, taking care of your body, is an important Jewish mitzvah, and in the end, decided just to keep this part of my life quiet. However, that is not just the end of the happy story. I was diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder called Stickler syndrome, and I was also diagnosed with lipedema, which is also a connective tissue disorder, which leads to fibrotic tissue building up in your extremities. I've gone on a huge overhaul of trying to figure out how to live with these conditions and implement therapeutic changes to my diet. So I switched from kind of a normal diet to a whole foods, Mediterranean, lower carb diet. Obviously that came with some changes, because if you go back to my earlier videos, you'll see a lot of carbs, a lot of yummy challah, a lot of delightful things I used to bake in my kitchen. And I still make them on occasion, but it's a little different now. So my life has changed, my lifestyle has changed, and I have no judgment either how it was before or how it is now. It is something that I have to do for my health. I am still undecided whether I'm going to talk more about Stickler syndrome and lipedema. It is kind of personal, but on the other hand, these are both underdiagnosed conditions. Especially lipedema affects far more women than people are aware. And so should I or should I not use my little platform to raise awareness? I don't know. But I'm going to sit with that question a little bit more. There was also some other stuff that was going on for me, which is not about the physical, and that is about my mental health. Rabbis are human beings, and these last number of years had really taken a toll on my mental and spiritual health. I suffered from burnout, and more importantly, I suffer from moral injury in wake of all the atrocities that are happening in our world right now, especially the things that are happening and have been happening in the Middle East. And I've kind of alluded to this previously on my channel. I've made a few videos talking about the Gaza war, but I've never really explored it too much because I thought it was beyond the scope and mission of my channel. As I am approaching true middle age, I've decided to show up more authentically. So what does that mean for the channel? To put it very succinctly, the original mission of the channel, to make Judaism beautiful, has not changed. But the reality is that our world has changed. I also want to say that there are different spheres and roles and ecosystems in which we show up in our lives as human beings, as professionals, as partners, as friends. We cannot be all things to all people. A lot of the work that I've been doing in my congregation has been justice-focused work, and I did not bring it that much onto the channel because there already is enough justice work being done online, and I don't think that the justice work that I do is all that remarkable, frankly. The niche I wanted to fill was that there was very little egalitarian religious Jewish content that showed the blessings of living a sacred Jewish life and bearing out that life in the domestic sphere. And that was really kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide guides and learning opportunities, as well as kind of showcasing through my own lived experience what it is like to live a sacred Jewish life from a non-Orthodox perspective. But as I said, the world has changed. As important as my justice work is in my community, through my teaching, through my preaching, more importantly, through community building and the relationships that I've built locally in my life to build solidarity, I realized that I have some thoughts to share about that. And I want to share them more and more on the channel because I think our age calls for that. Our age calls for courage and conviction and bearing your message out proudly into the world. I want this justice-informed Torah that I bring to the channel to be thoughtful and measured, not necessarily partisan and not necessarily polarizing. Certainly to speak from the tradition when demands of justice are placed upon our conscience and how we should heed them. What was the big shift? I think for many people who live within the Jewish community, we've all been really struck by the great tensions and divides that have come out of October 7th and the Gaza war. I really see this as a rupture in our community. And I want to be really clear, it's not just about what's happening over there in Israel-Palestine, it's also about what's happening here. I unfortunately can control very little of what happens there. I can't wave a magic wand and guarantee a peaceful, secure, and just solution for the 7 million Jews and 7 million Palestinians between the river and the sea. I do not have that power. None of us do. It's up to them over there to figure that out. But I can speak to how it's impacting us here in the diaspora. What some of the underlying questions that are tugging at our heartstrings are. What are some of the things that we really ought to be wrestling with as a community? And this is the work that I've been doing congregationally for the past almost 3 years. It is exceedingly difficult, but it is also of vital importance that we find a way through. But I also notice that online discourse on this topic is, well, toxic AF. Let me put it that way. And so the question is, how are we going to bring principled thoughtfulness and moral conviction into this space? Can I do it? I don't know, but I'm gonna try. I have a vested interest in staking out and building up what I call a humanitarian Judaism. A Judaism that is focused on human rights, on human flourishing, that upholds the fundamental dignity of each human being created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of the divine, no matter where they're from and no matter who they are. That is a non-negotiable in at least my reading of Jewish ethics. I also want to reclaim and amplify Judaism's universalist tradition, which is not to say there isn't place for particularism, and that also doesn't mean that you cannot reframe particularism in a really fruitful, compelling way, and I will do that, I promise. But I also think that we ought to be reclaiming what it means to be an Or LaGoyim, a light unto the nations. And part of being a light is that we learn to wrestle with our own shadows. What's next? First of all, I want to focus on pacing myself. I am not going to commit to a particular recording schedule or how often I will upload or post or how much I will engage. I just want this channel to continue growing and thriving. I'm so grateful to all of you for having stuck around. I want to bring in bigger ideas, big ideas to help us understand the moment that we are living through as a Jewish community and as human beings in this brave new world. What's next for the channel? I want to do a little bit more text study. So I expect a little bit more text study content. And I want to create a little book club, because why not? I have created a book club in real life in my own congregation, and I have read some amazing books. And I'm deeply heartened by the fact that I don't have to figure this out all on my own. There are fantastic Jewish thinkers, often on the cutting edge, often innovative, who can help us along the way. Maybe expect some video essays, a bit more structured, a bit more scripted maybe, about the issues of our day. In conclusion, because this is a rather boring video, frankly, I want to make sure that liberal-minded Judaism does not cede any ground. And by liberal-minded, I don't mean necessarily politically liberal. It can mean that, but again, I am not really interested in a partisan channel. By liberal-minded, I mean philosophically liberal. Liberal as in engaging critical thinking, embracing pluralism, standing for liberal democracy, no matter what political philosophy or ideology any one person may adhere. I do not want liberal Judaism to cede space to fundamentalism. I wanted to do this work quietly through a small sanctuary, kind of show and tell. I'm a big believer in show and tell. I'd rather show than tell. And I wanted to show through the beautiful sacred Jewish life that we get to live as non-fundamentalist or non-Orthodox Jews. And that was my commitment with a small sanctuary. But I think the time has come for me to tell a little bit too. So that is my mission. I want to become louder in the mission that I had. I want to protect and stake out a moral claim. I want to stand with my community. I want to stand with people who feel vulnerable right now, who are scared. I want to offer a little bit of comfort and a little bit of clarity. That is my comeback video. Thank you for being here. And as the videos go on, you'll see this lovely vibrant pink fade. If you do want me to talk about my health and fitness journey, I'm willing to do that within limits. Or if you want me to talk about my diagnoses because it is helpful to you. I know that the hypermobile connective tissue disorder community is really kind of exploding as more and more people are being diagnosed. I'm happy to do that if you leave a comment down below. Nice to be back, and I'll see you on the next one. Shalom uvracha, with peace and blessings from my body to